Hello, this is Amy Brown, Director of Events and Education for Trade Press Media Group. Thank you for joining us for today's webcast, Smart, Sustainable Technology Enabling the New Corporate Health Responsibility. Our presenter today is Ben Boyer, Executive Chairman and co-founder of R0. As Executive Chairman of R0, Ben is revolutionizing the $20 billion disinfection industry, helping to shape a new standard for health and safety in public spaces. Under his strategic business leadership, R0's trajectory has been fascinating, with a fast-track success for 3 to 5 years, revenue and growth milestones in the company's first year of business. Just a reminder of today's learning objectives, we'll discuss how a critical workplace transformation is paving the way for innovation and technology that better addresses how organizations safeguard human health. Highlighting how specific technology, including UVC lights, software, and automation can help facility managers reduce risk through their facilities, and learn how to enable safer workplaces without chemicals or added labor. Before we get started with today's webcast, I'd like to just cover a few details. A live question and answer session will follow today's presentation. And to submit questions, please navigate to the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and type in your questions. Our presenter will answer as many questions as time permits. At the conclusion of today's webcast, you'll receive a PDF copy of today's presentation slides. You'll also receive a link to a brief online assessment, and upon successful completion of this assessment, you'll receive your CEU certificate. Today's webcast will also be archived at facilitiesnet.com/webcast. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Ben.
Thank you so much. First off, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to sit through this presentation. I'm thrilled to tell you about R0 and how we're modernizing disinfection with a suite of offerings that are cheaper than manual disinfection, higher efficacy, sustainable, and data-driven. I'm going to touch upon a couple of themes that we've learned from our more than 1,000 deployments to date, which include infection prevention is much bigger than COVID alone. Employees are demanding more from their employers when it comes to sanitation, and legacy methods of chemical-based interventions are absolutely not the answer. And apologies for that. While people are anxious to get back to a normal pre-COVID life, when it comes to preventable infectious disease, we can do a lot better than we were at before the pandemic, when every year up to 40 million Americans caught influenza, 20 million Americans came down with the norovirus. Hospital-acquired infections like pneumonia and C. diff cost $40 billion of yearly economic damage. E. coli outbreaks were a regular occurrence, and staph and MRSA killed more people annually than HIV, emphysema, Parkinson's, and homicide combined. Before COVID, these infectious diseases cost US employers almost $600 billion per year in impaired performance, sick days, workers' compensation, disability, and medical leave. But something incredible happened in 2020. While we were fighting the coronavirus, we wiped out the flu, and most people didn't even get a cold that year. Not getting sick has permanently changed the mindset of employees. In a recent Harris poll, 65% of respondents said their biggest fear about going back to the office is they're likely to get sick more often. And 66% said the primary reason they would want to continue to work from home is that they want to avoid getting sick. The net result of this change in mindset is that employees expect more from their employers. In that same Harris poll, 80% of those surveyed believe that even though people are getting vaccinated, employers should still make every effort to offer better cleaning protocols to help keep employees protected from all kinds of infectious illness and not just COVID. 91% of employees believe their employer is responsible for making sure they are safe from all infectious illness at the office. More than 60% of workers would look for another job if their employer did not implement sufficient infection prevention. And with more than 10 million job openings in the US right now, employees have plenty of options when it comes to where they work. So where do we go from here? The world has changed tremendously in the past decade, let alone 80 years when the Clorox ad on the left was first published. Virtually every large industry, from retail via Amazon, auto via Tesla, aerospace via SpaceX, and taxis via Lyft, has been modernized by technology. The one lone exception is disinfection, which is still inefficient because humans make mistakes. And Clorox, in a Clorox study, they found and published this on their website that up to 50% of surfaces are missed by manual when manual disinfection is the only type of disinfection that's implemented. It's unsustainable because chemicals are bad for the environment. It's dangerous for applicators, and we're starting to see exposure lawsuits filed by employees. And it's costly because in addition to chemicals, it requires additional labor. When my co-founders and I started R0, we studied what hospitals, which are the highest risk environments in the world, use for disinfection, which is UVC. This technology has been the standard for medical grade disinfection for decades, but it didn't cross the chasm into non-medical applications like office space, schools, hotels, and restaurants until we released ARC. ARC is among the most powerful UVC devices ever created. We put out 40% more germicidal UVC than systems that cost more than $125,000 per unit. This allows us to achieve an industry-leading 4-log reduction or 99.99% kill of pathogens like MRSA, human coronavirus, E. coli, and feline calicivirus in 1,000 square feet in 7 minutes. We have booked just under $30 million of sales of this unit in less than 8 months, and we're now protecting millions of square feet of real estate across schools, professional sports teams, corporations, jails, hotels, restaurants, and healthcare facilities. But we're just getting started. These next couple of slides are products that don't yet show up on our website, but we've already begun selling and utilizing them. R0 is the first company in the world leveraging advanced machine learning and AI to provide a customized risk assessment of a physical space to right-size disinfection solutions and predict health outcomes. We can score any space based on its physical attributes like floor plan, ceiling heights, air changes per hour, and MERV rating. We also look at density, so how the actual physical space is used, how many people are in it at any given time. Once we have that data, we can create the risk score. And after we have the risk score, our data sciences team will run simulations of a variety of different solutions that we produce that can optimally minimize risk. Once we determine the best solution, we can implement what's required. While creating a baseline score based on the physical attributes of a space is important, it's also imperative to understand how the space is used each day. It's for this reason we recently purchased a company called Coworker that sells a suite of occupancy sensors. The data that is captured from these sensors allows us to further tune our predictive capabilities and refine the mechanisms by which we protect. These sensors also allow us to automate janitorial workflows based on what happened within a space during the day. This is exceedingly important as many organizations adopt a hybrid work model and don't have employees utilizing the office on a daily basis. Sensor data also feeds our new IoT-enabled fixture products that allow organizations to implement automated and continuous disinfection of occupied spaces. The first of our new fixtures is a product we call Beam. Beam is an upper room UVGI, which is an application the CDC is pushing for indoor spaces. This product mounts to a wall or a ceiling at a height of at least 7 feet and creates a zone of irradiance that disinfects the air above occupants below. Because of the natural convection of breath, this system will allow an organization to achieve up to 16 effective air changes per hour without modifying the central HVAC or committing to a lifetime of expensive filter replacements. We designed this product to turn itself on when people enter a room and deactivate itself at night when people are no longer in the office. It uses LEDs to create the UVC, so it's also energy efficient. Our second fixture is a product we call Vive. Vive is the world's first autonomous far UVC system. Far UVC is nothing short of a game changer in that it's the world's first real-time disinfection technology. ARC generates UVC at the 254 nanometer wavelength, which is incredibly germicidal, but it's not good for people's skin and eyes. Because of that, the operational model for ARC is to use it in unoccupied spaces. 222 nanometers, or the far UVC wavelength, is slightly shorter, but it's also totally human safe. With this product, we can create zones of irradiance in places like conference rooms, where anything aerosolized that comes out of someone's mouth, a sneeze, a cough, or even just a breath, is instantly disinfected. It can also be used as an always-on surface disinfection capability in high-risk environments like restrooms, elevators, cafeterias, and break rooms. Once again, like Beam, this is an IoT-enabled piece of hardware that utilizes sensor data to turn on and off and can be programmed based on the physical attributes of any given space. This gives you a sense for all of our products and their implementation in what we're terming the office of tomorrow. There is an opportunity to rethink how we bring people together in a physical space. Humans are indoor species. We spend the vast preponderance of our life either in a house or at the office. And there is an opportunity to radically change what it means to share that space with other people. I'm sure everyone on the call has had children that have gone to school and gotten sick because they were interacting with other sick kids. And I'm sure the same can be said about your experiences in an office setting. And it doesn't need to be that way. There is an opportunity to implement this suite of technologies to create continuous and automated disinfection of air and surfaces in the places we spend our time. I'm now gonna run a demo of the ARC product. And when I'm done, I'll open it up for questions, but let me pan the camera out real quick. There we go. So ARC is 6.5 feet tall. I highlight that simply because it was architected to fit in any, fit through any doorway. Excuse me, I had my blocks on. So it's, I'm 5'10", it is taller than I am. The system utilizes 8 of the highest output bulbs that you can purchase today. They are very simple to install. And so there's no truck roll required from maintenance to come out and replace light bulbs. The way we have set up our operations is we recycle old bulbs. So every, call it 2 to 3 years, depending on usage, we will ship a set of replacement bulbs. We know the exact time to do so because ARC is an IoT-enabled piece of hardware. We get to see when, where, and how long the device is operated. And so we know when it's time to ship you replacement bulbs. The shiny part of this product that you see are parabolic reflectors. When we designed the product, the initial idea was just to get the highest output bulbs and put them in this product and create a lot of germicidal UV. As I showed you with the bulbs, they look very similar to a fluorescent light bulb. And what that means is it's emitting light in 360 degrees. As we were studying the output of the early model, we realized if we put a reflector behind the back of the bulb, we could bend light forward. And so we tested a whole bunch of different metals. And what we determined was aluminum was the most reflective for UVC light. And then we found a nano coating that is supplied by a company that has optimized this coating for UVC specifically. This increased the output of the device by 40% and made a real big difference in allowing us to build something that is more powerful than anything else on the market. So it's incredibly powerful, and it's also quite easy to use. As we were thinking about taking a type of technology or a piece of technology that had been used for decades in hospitals, we started to think about, well, who's going to use it outside the hospital? In a hospital setting, devices just like this are operated by an infection prevention team. These are cleaners, but they're higher skilled. They tend to get paid more money, and they're often not churning out of the job as quickly as what you see with typical janitorial teams. And with typical janitorial, it's a high churn job. It's not a very high paying job. A lot of people that work in that industry, English is a second language. Many of them use feature phones as opposed to smartphones. And we were dead set on building a smart device, an IoT enabled piece of hardware that would provide data for our customers on how the device was used so they could create an audit trail. But we had to make it really simple. And so we spent a lot of time and energy thinking through what it would mean to make a product that everyone would feel comfortable using. Even if you've had no technical training, even if English is your second language. What we came up with was a 4-button solution. The design target for ARC was a microwave. And if you can operate a microwave, you can operate this device. We have on and off as one button. There is up and down, which is to set the cycle time or to scroll through pre-programmed rooms. I'll cover that in a second. And then run. That is it. Those are your 4 buttons. When we bring on a customer, we help that customer to define a protocol. Protocol is just how you want to use the device. At this point in the pandemic, most of our customers already have a protocol in place. They know at a school they want to disinfect the classrooms, teachers' lounge, cafeteria, and restrooms at night. And so the janitorial team will pull one of these devices along with the cleaning cart. And when they're done cleaning a room, they'll wheel the device in, they'll run a disinfection. While that disinfection is going on, they're in the classroom next door doing cleaning there. So they're not, it's not slowing them down in any way. It's not really forcing a rewrite of the janitorial process. But the system itself will tell our customers when and how it was operated. And again, as part of onboarding, we will help create the protocol. And then every single day, some employee of at our customers can log in and see, did the disinfection that they asked to happen, in fact, happen? And it's interesting, and we hadn't really thought about this from the get-go, but disinfection has historically been an invisible process. You can tell people to do stuff, but unless you're there to actually observe it happening, because it's an invisible process, you have no idea whether or not it happened. With our device, we get to see when, where, and how long, and that data is married to the protocol, which is which rooms. And so we have corporate customers that are using it in the restrooms all throughout the day. And we have schools that are implementing, as I described, in the evenings. And we have hospitals and doctors' offices that are using it when they turn over patients. But in every instance, we can help create a custom protocol and basically an audit trail of all the disinfection activities that are taking place. Beyond that, that's pretty much it. There's a couple things to call out about this device, and I mentioned it a little bit when I talked about Vive. So the UVC wavelength of 254 nanometers is not good for your skin or your eyes. It's not going to kill you. OSHA says there are permissible dosage levels of UVC light. But our perspective is no one should interact with it in any capacity. So when we built this product, we did so in a way that would prevent human interaction. We have 360 degrees of PIR sensors at the top. These are motion sensors. They look for either heat or motion. And to the extent they see either, they will not let the device run. And so if you try to run it and don't leave the room, the system won't be activated. And if you're running a disinfection and then someone inadvertently opens the door, the system will automatically deactivate. I will show you that function now. I'm going to run a very quick demo. I won't let the cycle go on very long, but you can just see how simple it is. I just hit run. It says exit the room starting in 27, 26, 25. It's a 30-second countdown timer. And so the system will activate itself so long as I leave the room in 18 seconds. As I said, I will leave for just a few seconds, let the device turn on, And then I will come back in, show you the PIR sensor, and then answer questions. So that's it. I walked in and I wasn't even exposed to the UVC. The door was the motion that the sensor picked up and it deactivated itself. The light ring at the top shines red when a cycle has been interrupted. And this is to let the operator know that the disinfection was not completed. If you look at the display here, it says cycle paused at 2 minutes, 43 seconds. I would have to go through and restart it again to have the cycle completed. And so we've tried to make it a foolproof, safe product. Above and beyond this safety measure, when we onboard customers, we go through extensive training to explain how to operate the device, what you should and should not do. We also ship it with signage. So this is something that could go on a doorknob to say, do not enter, disinfection is going on, or even larger signs and placards. But as I said, the device will not run with humans. I apologize for this camera. In the room, it will turn itself off when it sees an either heat or motion through the PIR sensors. That's pretty much it on ARC. I'm happy to answer questions. And so I'm going to sit back down.
Great. Thank you, Ben. And yes, we do have a few questions coming in. The first question that's come in is, does it have automation too, or is it manually needed to be shifted from one place to the other?
Yeah, so this product is a manual product. And so the idea is to pair it up with the number of janitorial teams that are operating concurrently. It's interesting, we have a robot. It's not something that we're selling yet, but we have sort of tested it. And what we've come to conclude is, and I keep apologizing for the camera, but what we've come to conclude is, at least for our customers and how dynamic the organizations are, robots aren't a great use case. And the reason being is doors. Most of our organizations that are using it are bringing it into lots of different rooms. Many of those rooms have doors that are always shut. And unless we were willing to build a $200,000 or $300,000 robot, there's no ability to have the robot open the door. Where we're going with automation are the fixtures. These allow for a fully automated and continuous disinfection of both air and surfaces of spaces. And these are systems that will just work. There is no requirement for humans to do anything. The system will tell us what has gone on in a space, when it ran, how long it ran. So we can, again, take that data and feed it into the audit trail to show that we were providing, or that you were providing, the level of disinfection that was required.
Perfect. And it is pretty easy to move around the ARC.
It's very easy. And as I said, the device was built with the idea that it would be pulled with a cleaning cart, which is how it's often done.
Perfect. And then Ben, you went over this a little bit, but just another question about some of the safety, and do you need to use PPE while operating the equipment?
No. And again, the two fixtures were architected to work in occupied spaces. So no concept of PPE in any capacity, totally safe. As it pertains to this device does not require PPE, but you would not be in this space when it operates. And so, as I mentioned before, the janitorial team will typically clean things as they normally would. When they're done cleaning, they bring the device in and run a disinfection. While that disinfection is going on, they are in some other part of the physical space cleaning. So again, it's not requiring the organization to hire additional staff just to man this product. They can integrate it into existing cleaning workflows. But beyond that, it's totally safe. I sometimes when I run demos, I leave an apple out and then I take a bite. this will not produce anything that can hurt people. So long as you're not in the room where it would irritate your skin and your eyes, you could leave an apple out and eat it afterwards. It's just light. So unlike using chemicals where you have to destroy food if they interact with it, clean plates and the like, this is totally food safe.
And I think that was a good point you just made, Ben. So I want to make sure people heard it and understood it, that, you know, you still would need to clean a space first before you disinfect a space, correct?
Yeah, that is entirely true. So this is a disinfection technology. Cleaning is totally different. If someone were to spill Coca-Cola on this desk, you'd still have to wipe it and clean it. So this is not a product that would solve that. And candidly, there aren't products that are really viable today that would solve that in an economic fashion. But what this will provide is the ability to disinfect and provide a massive reduction in the pathogen load, any type of pathogen. I mean, from common cold, seasonal flu, mold, to more of the hospital-specific ones like C. diff, MRSA, and the like.
Perfect. And kind of in line with that, we had another question come in. With prolonged UV light, is there any issues with materials in the room degrading, plastics, other UV sensitive materials?
Yeah, it's much less so than sun. And most of our cycle times are so short that you will never see or notice any form of degradation. Leaving something out in the sun is far more harsh on most plastics and rubbers.
Perfect. We are getting a lot of questions on what size space a unit like that can disinfect. So do you want to take a few minutes and kind of talk about square footage and things like that?
Yeah, so when we built this product, we had really the ability to build one thing in the meat of COVID. The goal of R0 in the earliest days was just to help and respond. We were thinking about all the different type of products that could be useful. We went with this form factor, one, because this is what the hospitals use, this pretty much exact same product. And that's why we've sold into a bunch of hospitals. But two is it's super flexible. We have doctors' offices that use it in 8x10 rooms, and it's a very fast cycle time. We have 12 professional sports teams that use it in large training facilities as well as in some of the arenas, and they're running much longer cycle times. It's basic math, and we actually have an algorithm that will help define how long you run it in any specific space. 1,000 square foot room, which tends to be about the size of most US school classrooms, is a 7-minute process. We've seen it run in 3,500 square feet for 15 minutes. If you want to run it in even larger spaces, you absolutely can. You're just going to run multiple cycles. What I was describing is a single cycle, 1,000 square feet, 7 minutes. But again, as part of our onboarding, we will have a very clear sense for the space that we're helping to protect. We can program the device over the air because of the IoT functionality, so that the operator will be able to scroll through with the up and down arrows to say, I'm in conference room, 5th floor, east wing. And we can help define how everything is tagged and then how long you run it.
Perfect. And Ben, can you provide a little bit more information on the fixed units? What type of maintenance do those have, and how do those work a little bit more?
Yeah, so both of the fixtures, we're just now starting to sell them. Both of the fixtures are installed products. The upper room UVGI product can be set up in sort of two different ways. One is off of the ceiling, and the second is just a wall mount. With the wall mount, it's a very simple implementation. It's almost like hanging a flat panel TV. We have a bracket that is mounted into the wall, just need studs and a power source. And then you hang the device on top of it. We have a partner that will do all the installation. And so they'll come out and they'll figure out exactly where to put it. But the product you see right there weighs about 25 pounds, including the bracket. So it's not a particularly heavy one. In terms of the business model, we charge a reasonably small amount up front for this product. And there is a monthly charge after the first year. It's included in the first year. What you're getting with that is our software. So there'll be an opportunity to log in and see all the disinfection that's gone on in a particular location. We can aggregate a whole bunch of devices to roll it up to give you a more holistic view of an office environment. We also are responsible for the bulbs. This system uses LED. They're totally recyclable, but we will ship you replacement LED cartridges when required. Does not require anyone with technical capabilities to change it. They snap in, and you can throw the others in your plastic recycling bin. And then the last thing is maintenance. To the extent something fails on it, we will truck roll someone and fix it. And so I'm sorry about that, but so upfront and then a small monthly fee. We offer volume discounts on the monthly fee based on the number of units that someone purchases. It's much easier for us to explain pricing for all these products live, simply because it really varies based on the type of deployment, how many units, and the like. The other fixture, the Vive product, it's an even easier installation. You basically just need to replace one of your ceiling lights with that product. Sensors are also extremely easy. So there's Vive. And so very light product. I don't know exactly how much it weighs, but it's something you can hold it in one hand. And so very simple to mount that product. The sensors, which was 2 slides forward. Yeah. Sensors come in two different in two different modules. One of them is battery powered and the other is wired. The battery powered one has a 7-year battery life. So it's an industry leading technology. And this is the reason why we bought the company, is they figured out how to capture all this data and not clock a battery too hard. So you literally could just screw these into ceiling tiles. They don't weigh much. And you can also do it in a wired form. And that's become really attractive for new construction. But if you have an existing space and you're trying to get data about where people go, where they don't go, how long they spend time, these are great products. We can create heat maps and show you how your real estate assets are used throughout the day. This is all anonymous data. What we're using is PIR. So we're basically seeing pixels of heat and motion, and we're using an algorithm to translate what it is. Is that, is it a human? If they see heat light up in a certain corner of an office over and over again, it's probably not a human, it's probably a printer. And so there is an algorithm that can discern what's going on in the physical space, but there's no ability to know, is it me versus someone else, just because there's no capture of that data. It's just pixels of heat and motion.
Perfect. Ben, if somebody already has occupancy sensors in their building, is that something that can be tied in with some of the R0 products?
Yeah, so we're definitely open to integrating with other products in the market. We've just been asked over and over again if we could supply sensors, and we looked at a whole bunch of them, and we really like the coworker team, but we know there's a whole bunch of different sensors out there, everyone from the Honeywells of the world to Density, VergeSense. For us, we build everything in an open API manner. And so long as the sensor company also has APIs, we can figure out a way to integrate with them.
Perfect. Ben, we received a question. Can you talk a little bit about any third-party testing or validation that R0 has gone through?
Sure. We have all of our products tested by an ISO certified lab. And so we have that data. And so what the ISO certified lab does is they use real pathogens and test in a real world type environment how these devices actually perform. And so we just got our testing data back on the Beam product, and it came out incredible. And we also have testing data back on Vive, but we can supply that information if that's of interest. When I talked about the 4-log reduction with this product, what we tested it against was MRSA, feline calicivirus, which is in the norovirus family. It's a stomach ailment, and it's much hardier and harder to kill than most pathogens. We also tested human coronavirus, and we tested E. coli. And in every instance, in 1,000 square feet, in a sort of real world environment where there's dirt and dust and things of that nature, this system got to a 4-log reduction of both air and surfaces in 7 minutes. And so we have all that data. We can share it. Well, interesting tidbit about the human coronavirus is it's actually very easy to kill when compared to some of the other types of infections out there. So it's not the hardiest, and we could get to a very fast kill of that particular pathogen. It's also worth noting that surfaces alone is not the name of the game when it comes to COVID. While there can be surface level transmission, you also have to deal with the air, and that is the primary vector of transmission. So as you think about an organization that's adopted more Clorox wiping, if you will, really doing very, very little in the way of preventing COVID. Definitely helping as it pertains to bacterial infections, which primarily spread through surfaces. But if the goal is really to reduce the incidence of things like influenza and the human coronavirus, you really have to focus on the air.
Perfect. A lot more questions coming in, so feel free to type in your questions through the Q&A panel for Ben. We kind of talked about this a little bit. What do you produce? Does the product produce an ozone? What time frame can you safely re-enter a space?
Yeah, 0 ozone. So you can re-enter the space as soon as it's done. It's very important for us not to produce ozone. So we use a special quartz bulb, which doesn't produce ozone in any capacity. None of our products produce any form of ozone, and we're very much against ozone producing products because they're not good for the environment and they're even worse for people. And so there's no requirement to wait things out. It's not as though you've used an electrostatic sprayer and things have to settle. So it's a great product. That's why we have doctors' offices that use it literally in between every patient, and it's a very short process there, but no ozone.
Perfect. And you kind of touched on this, but somebody was asking the difference between this type of device and bipolar ionization units when it comes to disinfecting.
Yeah, BPI is another way to go. It candidly, when we look at different technologies to support, we looked at BPI. The jury's definitely out on it. And so we did not feel comfortable producing any products that use bipolar to augment or change the air. If it becomes more proven, we'd be happy to reevaluate it, but the science isn't there yet. Everything we've done has been science forward. So we're basically looking to see what has the body of evidence that proves efficacy. UVC is one of the most tried and true forms of disinfection ever. The Nobel Prize in Medicine was awarded to a doctor by the name of Niels Vinson in 1903 for his work with germicidal UV. It's been used to treat wastewater since the 1910s and HVAC since the 1920s, and it's still used in that same capacity today. There's no pathogen on the face of the earth that has any form of resistance, so it will kill everything today and whatever the next pandemic may be. And the reason being is the sun does produce UVC, but it's so short in wavelength it won't pass through the atmosphere. All we get is UVA and UVB, and it's good because we probably all die if we got exposed to UVC every day via the sun. So it's man-made. And so there is no ability for a pathogen to form resistance against it. It's used against the most antibiotic resistant bacteria. But yeah, we're definitely not supporting BPI. We have a number of customers that went down that path and pulled out. And again, I think we'll have a better sense for what science is saying about BPI over the next few years.
Perfect. We had another question just about energy efficiency and how much energy these types of units use.
Yeah, so the Beam and the Vive, very little. I don't know the exact power draw of Vive, but it uses 3 excimer lamps, which they're also called krypton chloride lamps, and it's not much. This draw is about the same as a hair dryer. And so that's a reasonable poll, but most cycle times are three to 7 minutes. It's really not much. We've never had a customer complain about the energy consumption of this, but it's effectively like running a hair dryer for 3 to 7 minutes.
Perfect. Ben, can we kind of switch over to more on the audit side now? You kind of touched about some of the reporting capabilities for facility managers to be able to log in. Can you talk a little bit more about what kind of data they'll be able to collect?
Yeah, so right now the data is really being built around this product. We have started writing the software for the fixtures, but this is the most robust. Basically what this allows a facilities manager at a real estate, even someone in HR, to do is to pull up the physical office and see all the different areas that are receiving some form of disinfection. We can identify at the building level, at the floor level, at the actual office level. So very granular. The way we achieve that is the device is part of the onboarding. We figure out all the places it could be used. We figure out how long it should be used in every place. And then we program the device over the air so that whenever the operator is operating it, they just use up and down arrows to say where they are. I'm in, the second floor, women's room, west side. And so when we get all that data, we see the run times, we can actually pull together basically an audit trail of all the disinfection. This is good for those businesses that are worried about legal liability, but I'd say even more important for those organizations that just want to make sure it gets done. So you can log in the morning and ensure that the work that was supposed to get done the night before, in fact, did get done. And so that level of audit trail or compliance really hasn't existed in disinfection. We do have customers that recognize that certain things were missed overnight and they can just call someone and say, go do it. And given it's such a short cycle time, it doesn't, it's something that can be done last minute. The sensor company that we bought that provides the occupancy data, we're working with them on an application that will provide insights for janitorial teams. So you think about the current state of affairs with most corporate environments, or many corporate environments, is you're seeing hybrid work. You're seeing people come into the office certain days of the week, not others. You're not seeing all the office space or conference rooms be utilized as they once were. And so what we're doing with that data is we're creating a janitorial workflow that is spit out at the end of the day that says, look, these 14 offices and these 3 conference rooms and the restrooms were all used, so go clean there. And then the rest were not used. And so we actually, and we haven't done this piece, but we're building it out as well. We can then use the sensor data to figure out, where did the janitorial teams go? Did they actually go against what we told them to do? Did they go into every room that needed to be cleaned? Did they skip something? And so again, we can provide some level of insight and compliance based on these sensors that will give visibility into what actually happens after hours in these physical spaces.
Perfect, thank you. Ben, I know you've been implementing some of these units in different types of facilities. What do you see most effective? What types of facilities or what places have you implemented them?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I can't think of a type of organization we haven't implemented. And so we have about 500 schools today. As I mentioned before, 12 professional sports teams. We're doing everything from locker rooms to training facilities and even arenas. We have lots of jails, which you never imagined that would be a big vertical, but it is. One of our largest customers is a giant financial services company that's doing, they brought an epidemiologist in that did a risk assessment of all their physical assets. And the epidemiologist said, look, an individual office or a conference room is reasonably low risk as the office goes. That's a personal space. And you can even say, look, for a period of time, don't go in people's cubicles or office space. But if someone is sick, and it doesn't need to be COVID, but it certainly could be, and they go to the office, they're going to use the restroom at some point. They might use a break room. They might get called into a conference room. And so the protocol that this financial services customer implemented is really around heating those spaces all throughout the day with this product. Because it's such a short disinfection cycle, they're actually operating 2 devices concurrently in the restrooms, and they're doing very short cycles. I think they're 3 or 4 minutes per restroom, but they're doing it all throughout the day. I mean, like 6 or 7 times. They're hitting the break rooms after everyone eats, and they're hitting the conference rooms after every single meeting, so that whatever's going to happen next in that conference room is stepping into a disinfected space. You know, our largest customer right now is a big assisted living community, and they're hitting the common spaces. Some of the patients are mobile, so they'll disinfect those rooms very regularly. So we see that quite often. In the healthcare or hospital specific, it's just what you'd imagine. It's surgical theater, patient exam rooms. We've got vet clinics. We have restaurants, we have hotels. And so, yeah, if you have a physical space, we can disinfect it.
Perfect. I think we're at the end of the question log right now. So we'll give it a minute. If there's anybody that has another question for Ben, feel free to type it in, but I know we've gone over a lot of different aspects. Ben, just one final question on training. You kind of touched on that you'll work with the end user, but any other comments on training?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it's a kind of a learning curve for someone who's used to it, just, you know, a chemical disinfectant process.
Yeah, it's one of the things I'm most proud of with the business is our NPS score. So NPS is a measure of how likely is someone to recommend a product or a service to other people. And so we care desperately about the success of our customers. What that means is we actually have a very large customer success team. And these are the people that are going to ensure that the devices are delivered on time, that they're white glove assembled and ready to operate. This is the same team that will also spend the cycles with each of our customers to understand how to build out this audit trail, the software, and how to program the device for each of the physical spaces so that it doesn't require anything. There's no thought. You don't have to guess, am I in a 1,000 square foot room or am I in a 500 square foot room? The system will know based on the work we do up front that this classroom is 1,000 square feet. Our NPS score right now is above Apple. And that's a beloved company. And I do not think we're as good as Apple in most things we do, but this is one thing that we've thus far done better. And we care desperately about the utilization of the product. What got us to start this business was this desire to help with the coronavirus. You know, my 12-year-old daughter not being able to go to school, seeing friends and family get ill. What got us really excited, though, midway through building this was this realization that, while this is a wonderful enhanced disinfection tool, there's an opportunity to really rewrite all of disinfection and to remove chemicals from a huge portion of it and to do something that is cheaper. Our fixtures are ultimately cheaper than buying Clorox chemicals and hiring ABM janitors because there's no people. And doing something that can actually be autonomous and continuous and really reduce the pathogen risk of any physical space. So we do care desperately about the customer. We're building everything to try to help. And the mission of R0 is to reduce sick days now and forever. You know, today it's all about COVID, but every year it's influenza, norovirus, MRSA, and all these other pathogens.
Perfect. We've had a few more questions come in.
Sure.
Somebody was asking about an office, using this unit in an office that has glass partitions.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine. So one of our investors is the earliest investor in Tesla. And we have an awesome internal picture of our device being used in a conference room with a whole bunch of the team watching it before Elon Musk walked in there. So UVC, as I mentioned, is a very short wavelength. It won't pass through like plastic or glass. So if you have fish in an aquarium, it won't impact them. You can stare and look at it through a window. The PIR sensors will also not be triggered via the window. They will see to the window. And so glass partitions are a perfect way to run a disinfection while you have people in that general area.
But then I would assume you would need to move it to a different part of the room than if you wanted to clean past a glass partition.
That's right. So all it's going to be doing is it will be disinfecting the air and the surfaces and wherever the glass partition was on that side. And to the extent you wanted to clean something else, you'd have to go through and move it.
Perfect. And then finally, somebody was asking if they have multiple buildings, how easy is it to move between buildings, or do you recommend a unit per building?
Yeah, it depends on how big the buildings are and if it's stairs or elevators. So I move this up and down. I'm talking to you guys from the bottom level of my home, and I'll move it up and down depending on if I have to take it somewhere. But I would not recommend people lifting it. It's awkward. I think it weighs about 60 pounds. If there are elevators, it's great. I mean, it's got casters. We have a dude ranch in outside of Santa Barbara, and they have a handful of these, and they use it on that property. And so it's getting pulled over these, cobblestone type roads, and the system hasn't failed or had any problems. But what we typically see is the number of janitorial teams that work concurrently is the number of devices you're going to want. You can get away with less, but that means you're going to be paying them more to work longer. And if you keep it to the same number of janitorial teams, you can get them away from doing manual forms of disinfection and just run the system. And as I mentioned previously, while it is operating in a room and disinfecting, they're somewhere else doing something else. They're not just waiting.
Perfect. And then finally, Ben, we've had a few people, if they want to discuss specifics on pricing or availability, what's the best way to go about that? What's their next step?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to jump on separate calls with people. We have an individual named Brooke who's on the call as well, and she can help coordinate. But is it possible for me to provide my email to the list? Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you want me just to read it, or do you want me to send it to you? And
yeah, if you want to send it to me, we can get that out to everybody.
Okay, we'll
or if you want to say it right now too, and then we can.
It's very easy. It's Ben at r0systems.com. Ben at r0systems.com. And I can ensure we get a salesperson on the call. And I'm also happy to be on the calls if that's of use or interest. But we'll follow up with a little bit of material that maybe we can send out to the whole group so they have a little more context. But we're very excited to potentially work with this group of people, and yeah, we're definitely available to answer any and all questions. But yeah, Ben at r0systems.com.
Perfect. And then we just had one final question. Where are your systems manufactured, Ben?
Yeah, San Jose, California. So the company was founded in the Bay Area. And we've actually recently moved the headquarters to Salt Lake City, Utah. It's a little bit cheaper to build a business in Utah than California. We work with a contract manufacturer called Vanderben. They're wonderful, and they build the Da Vinci surgical robot, the Tesla Powerwall, all of the hardware for Google's cloud, and they make our products. So it's all built in San Jose.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Ben, for this great information. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with our audience?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to chat with everyone. I'd love to jump on separate calls if it's at all helpful. And obviously I can pull some sales resources to start looking at individual spaces and how we could help create a safer environment.
Perfect. And Ben and Brooke will get a list of all the questions asked, so you'll be able to know who's asking certain questions. So just a reminder, you will receive a copy of today's presentation, and there will be an archive available at facilitiesnet.com/webcast. And then stay tuned for that email so you can earn CEUs for participating in today's event. I'd like to thank Ben again for participating and R0 for this great information. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.